everyone, welcome to today's session where we are going to discuss the short story entitled A Cup of Tea. This short story is written by Katherine Mansfield. Katherine Mansfield was born in New Zealand, but she spent most of her working career as a writer in London, and she is a writer who is expert in writing short stories. We can say that she has a sleight of hand in crafting narratives surrounding such things which we find very ordinary or inconsequential, but she has such an expertise or talent that she can even take out some serious or introspective themes because the things which or objects or events she takes, they are very ordinary, but they beneath their surface, who seems very ordinary or inconsequential, we can find or they reveal some serious or introspective themes. So this is what the expertise of Katherine Mansfield, as in this case we have the topic or the subject, a cup of tea. And this short story, it was written in 1922, but later it also appeared in her short story collection entitled The Dove's Nest. Now let's have a brief discussion over the narrative of the story, and then we will continue with the thematic analysis of the story. So this short story, A Cup of Tea, actually revolves around this character whose name is Rosemary Fell, who is a very rich and well-off lady and is married to a rich and devoted husband or man, Mr. Philip Fell. And in the description we can see the major characteristic of this character, Rosemary Fell, where Mansfield describes her as she was young, brilliant, extremely modern, exquisitely well dressed, amazingly well read, in the newest of the new books, and her parties were the most delicious mixture of the really important people and artists, quaint creatures, discoveries of hers, and so on. So this is what the description of Rosemary Fell, who is a very rich and well-off lady and who spends her days in shopping and spending money lavishly. So the first episode starts with the description where Rosemary is in an antique shop. She is there. She is purchasing, or she wants to purchase some antique thing there, and the shop owner or the shop dealer or the dealer shows her an expensive jewelry box which she finds so much attractive and beautiful, and she instantly wants or desires to have it or to buy it. And then she asks the price of this antique thing, which is a very blue velvety or little box. And then after asking the price, she says, or she asks the shop owner to save it for her, as she has made up her mind to buy it in sometime in future. So this is what happens in the very first scene in the story. And then Rosemary comes out from the shop and she reaches, and when she is reaching to her car, she is approached by this poor raggedly looking young woman who is in tattered clothes, whose name is Miss Smith. So Miss Smith approaches Rosemary and asks for money and the price to buy a cup of tea. This is what happens when Rosemary is reaching to her car, and when she listens this strange demand that the lady just wants the price of a cup of tea. So at first Rosemary finds it very unimaginable, and she is also surprised that can someone be so poor that he or she can't even manage to buy a cup of tea for herself. So this is what Rosemary thinks, but suddenly she thinks that it is a very good opportunity to showcase that rich people also possess some mercy, and she also finds that this is the right opportunity where she can have some adventure and experience like the stories of Dostoevsky which she reads. And so all in all, she thinks that it is a very good chance to showcase or displays her kindness or caring attitude or caring nature. So she invites Miss Smith to take her home and to host her and have a tea with her at her home. At first, Miss Smith, by this strange and very unbelievable demand, unbelievable invitation, I can say, from Rosemary, she finds she feels very apprehensive, and but apart from her all the doubts, she finally becomes ready to ride with Rosemary in her car. So there is an extract which I have taken, which also shows that what is that philanthropic instinct, or what charitable inspiration inspires Rosemary so to invite Miss Smith, in spite of giving her just some or amount of money for with which she can buy a cup of tea, rather than giving her some money, she just invite her to home. So this is something Rosemary thinks at that time, that wonderful things, as she wants to convey, she wants to send this message to Miss Smith, or the poor girl, that wonderful things did happen in life, that fairy godmothers were real, and she is that fairy godmother, that rich people had hearts, and that women were sisters. So this is the extract which very clearly showcase that what is going on, what is the actual thought of Rosemary, and what she wants to show. And then when they reach home, Rosemary directly takes her to her bedroom and asks her to sit by the fire, and she also helps her in taking off her coat and hat, and she tries to soothe her. And when she is proceeding further in inquiring the story of the girl suddenly cries out. She says that I can't take it anymore, I can't stand it anymore, because out of hunger I feel that I'm going to faint very soon. Then Rosemary suddenly realizes that what girl wants, or what actually girl is suffering from, is hunger, and she is just soothing or comforting her with her words, or by showcasing the luxury of her home. So she hurriedly orders tea, Rosemary hurriedly orders tea, and then she provides tea and sandwiches to the girl. And during this, Rosemary lights her cigarette, and then as Smith was taking tea and sandwiches, that same time Rosemary is so much keen to know about the story of this girl, and as she attempts to uh, the girl about her background and her story, and what happens to her, suddenly at this juncture, husband of Rosemary, whose name is Philip Fell, he enters the bedroom, and he just gets gets surprised by this unexpected guest, and he excuses himself by taking Rosemary into another room, as he was so surprised and shocked that what this poor young girl is doing in their bedroom. So when Philip Fell inquires about this young beggar girl, and tries to make Rosemary understand that her nice plan, or her plans to be nice with the pickup, or with the girl who she has picked up, and behaving like a godmother, or behaving like a fairy godmother, is just an impractical one, and it is not that feasible, and she should drop this idea, such an impractical idea. It has certain difficulties in its execution. So he tries his best to convince Rosemary to drop her idea of becoming so and so much nice, and to the poor girl, just for the sake of showing or proving that rich people do have hearts, or fairy godmother exists. But Rosemary doesn't seem she seems very blatantly unconvinced and adamant to own her decision. Then Philip finds that or he feels that he has to adopt some other method, and then what he does, he just praises the beauty of that poor young girl, and by calling her astonishingly pretty, absolutely lovely. This he does on purpose, so that because he knows that it will arouse jealousy. in Rosemary's mind, and Rosemary and really it affects Rosemary, and she finds so much jealous, and she and insecure as well, that the sooner that as soon as Philip utters these words of praise for the young poor girl, she just comes out from the room and goes to her study room, arranges some cash and gives it to the just hands it over to Smith and sends her away on her way. She just sends her away, and she feels so, even she feels so insecure that she dressed up herself by doing her hair, darkening her eyes, and put on her pearls, so that she should look some more attractive, or she can attract her husband by her charming looks, and she can allure her husband by her charming looks, as he finds some other women more beautiful, or beautiful even. So she feels so much insecure and jealous, and in this way she sends and Philip has his own result, that now she has got rid of that young poor girl, and now Rosemary is now asking from Philip at the end of the scene that is she pretty. So this is what happens in this story. So this is the overview of the story, and now let's have a thematic analysis, or discuss about the themes one by one occurred in this short story. The first one, we can say that Mansfield has very tactfully depicted this theme, this contrast between appearance and reality in this story. As we can see through the character of Rosemary, that she seems, or she strives to show herself as a very kind, caring lady, but her actual intention are something else. Her actual intention is to her actual intention is that after this act of kindness which she has shown towards this poor girl, she will boast about it, she will brag on her in social circle, and in this way she could update or upgrade her status by bragging on this episode of showing her an act of kindness towards a poor girl. So it shows her hypocrisy, and what people seem to appear, they are not as they seem to appear. There is a contrast, there is a difference between appearance and reality, is very well depicted by Mansfield through this. And this also shows that how people take advantage of virtuous acts. They even take advantage of virtuous acts for their own benefits, for their own selfish interest, in order to gain fame, praise, and other material objectives. People showcase that they are philanthropic, or they are very much concerned about the poor strata of society. So this is what one of the themes we can find in this story. And the second one is materialism, and this also we can see that how Mansfield has showcased this theme by showing man's fondness for materialism. As in the very first episode, or in throughout the story, we can even see that Rosemary is chasing after the material objects. As in the first episode, she is shown as that she is desiring to or she is shown by Mansfield that she wants to have this enamel, this exquisite enamel box, which shows that she has a very penchant, very much inclination towards material objects, and she wants to have them in order to show her real taste in a very much snobbish way, we can say. And she also attempts to help Miss Smith, and that is not out of very much genuine kindness and concern for her. She just wants to help her so that she can later on brag on it, or she can later on get upgraded, or due to this act of kindness. So we can say that Mansfield has tried to show that how people are after material, how madly they are after material objects, and the true emotions are fading from the society. The next is class distinction, and this class distinction is very well portrayed by Mansfield in these two characters, where on one hand there is Miss Smith, who is very poor, and so poor, in tattered clothes, in miserable condition, that she can't even manage to buy a cup of tea for herself, and for which she begs Rosemary. And on the other hand there is Rosemary, who is a very well off and rich lady, who has every luxury of life, and she can get whatever she desire for. So this is what the Rosemary, and who is very well dressed, whereas Miss Smith is in tattered clothes. So this through these two contrasting character, Mansfield has draws a very good we can say comparison between these class distinction between rich and poor. And here we can also see that how Rosemary exploited the helpless situation of Mr. Smith in order to propagate her fame and her status in society. So in this way Mansfield has shown very tactfully and very brilliantly that how lower class people are exposed to hunger and disrespect at the hands of upper class, whereas upper class is enjoying everything or every luxury of life. So this is what class distinction tells us. And also we in one episode we can also see that how Mansfield has portrayed or highlighted the prejudice and apathy of upper class, how they turn a blind eye towards the sufferings of poor people, as in the scene when Rosemary is taking off a hat, and though she helps Miss Smith in taking off her hat and coat, but she throws them on the floor, which shows clearly that she has no respect to the belongings of Miss Smith. So this shows that how pathetic and prejudiced they are. So this is what the class distinction very beautifully portrayed by Mansfield. And we can also witness the theme of jealousy and insecurity in the story, and this is very well depicted in the later segment of the story, where when Philip is full of praise of the pretty look or charming look of the poor girl, which aroused suddenly or instantly, which aroused the jealous feelings or jealousy of Rosemary, and she feels so insecure that after sending the girl away, she put on a makeup in order to attract the attention of her husband, and she tries to lure him because she finds herself in so much insecure situation that she thinks that she will lose her husband because he is full of praise of other women. So this theme or jealousy and insecurity is also we can find in the story. So after this thematic analysis, let's have a brief literary or stylistic analysis of the story. If we talk about the setting, then the time frame of the story sets in 1920s, and the place where the story takes place, it shifts. At first there was it is in Curzon Street, then it shifts to Fell's house. And if we see the tone of the story, then it also changes, that as in the very beginning we find a very cheerful and enthusiastic tone, and the later on in the tone changes to some disgruntled and bitter tone. And if we see the genre, then this short story falls in the category of realistic fiction. So now let's see which symbols are used by Mansfield in order to depict the theme of the story perfectly. So the first symbol which we are going to discuss is box. This box, this enamel, exquisite enamel box, which is so attractive that Rosemary instantly finds herself attracted towards it and she wants to buy it. It also shows her appeal towards material objects, and this box's price and ornamentation displays perfectly the extravagance and materialism, that how Rosemary is into the materialism, that she is that instead of purchasing something useful, she is very much into buying the things which are so antique and uh, expensive. So this box very well displays or symbolizes extravagance and materialism. And then the cup of tea, and this object, a cup of tea, or this symbol, a cup of tea, symbolizes the sanctimony of upper class, and on the other hand also the exploitation of the poor class. That how this cup of tea tells us that how a philanthropic, even a philanthropic act can be become the object, or how people can use any philanthropic act for their own selfish interest. It can also be fake, which we can see very perfectly or very clearly in the activities or in the actions of Rosemary, where she is helping Miss Smith, not out of any genuine intimacy or care. She has just the thought of upgrading her social status and bragging on this her this act of kindness. So these are the symbols, and there are some more symbols. There can be some more symbols which I encourage to find out, and when you read the text. And if you see the imagery, the images used by Mansfield in order to give a clearer picture to the readers. So we can see, if we see this extract, then if we see some of the phrases, they are perfectly telling the doleful or sadful or sorrowful mood of Rosemary when she regrets, or when she couldn't buy that enamel box, and she requests, or she asks shop owner to save it for her, as she will purchase it sometime in future. So it perfectly matches with the doleful or sorrowful mood of Rosemary. As in this extract, you can see the images. Rain was falling, and with the rain it seemed the dark came too, spinning down like ashes. There was a cold bitter taste. She couldn't purchase that enamel box in the year, and the new lighted lamps looked sad. Sad were the lights in the house opposite. Dimly they burned, as if regretting something. She had the regret of not buying that enamel box. So these are some of the images which Mansfield is trying to convey the mood of the character. And next we can also see the imagery, or the brush of imagery, where Mansfield is trying to picturize the skinny or weak features of this young poor girl and her miserable condition, that how weak and skinny she is, that a little battered creature when she is portrayed as a light, a frail creature with tangled hair, dark lips. And at some point when Rosemary takes Smith to her bedroom, then Mansfield is trying this color imagery, where she is describing that that along with the glossy furniture, there were gold cushions. That this color imagery in order to show the beauty of the bedroom of Rosemary, gold cushions and the primrose and blue rugs. So this is what the stroke of imagery in the short story. And there are so many literary devices also used by Mansfield, like similes, like in the first statement, her heart beats like a heavy bell, which perfectly shows that how jealous and how insecure Rosemary feels when she listens the words of praise from the lips of her husband Philip fell for the young poor girl. Her heart beats like a heavy bell, voice like a sigh, almost like a sob. So this line very clearly states the miserable and the sorrowful condition of the young poor girl. And bird-like shoulders very well shows her frail or her very weak stature of the poor girl. She seemed to stagger like a child, and here the poor young girl is compared to a child who staggers. So these are the perfect imagery, and which are depicted or which are presented with the help of similes. And then personification. So here weather is personified in through this phrase cold bitter taste in the air, which is also perfectly matching with the mood of Rosemary. And looking sad, regretting something, here lamp is personified, where this inanimate object lamp is given humanly attribute by showing them looking sad and regretting something. So here personification is used. And then at some places and various places, I will say, or several places, metaphor is employed by Mansfield, like in the expressions like little battered creature, poor little thing, thin figure, new being a light, frail creature with tangled hair, and listless figure. These all images, or these all metaphors are these we can say the girls, the poor young girls frail stature or weak or skinny stature is metaphorized by in these expressions, and as though it had been baked in cream. This expression is for enamel, that exquisite enamel box. Its beauty is being described in such a way that it is so graceful, as though it had been baked in cream. And then we can also witness hyperbole in the very beginning of this short story, where Mansfield has exaggeratedly explained the richness of Rosemary by saying that she would go to Paris as you and I would go to Bond Street, that she would prefer to go to Paris if she wants shopping, where a common people like us would go to Bond Street. So this is a little exaggeration of the richness of Rosemary, where we can see very well employment of hyperbole by Mansfield. So this is what for today's session, where we have discussed the overview, where we have taken overview of this short story. We have discussed themes, and we have also done literary analysis and stylistic analysis of this short story. So that's all for today. Thank you for now.